My name is Grant Harris. I'm 48 years old and about as average as they come. At 5 feet and 8 inches, I am neither tall nor short. And at 170 pounds, I'm in decent shape. Most of my hair is still intact, though. It's turning gray, and I keep it cut high and tight. I run 3 miles a day more on weekends and can finish a half marathon in under 2 hours. I drink socially, don't smoke, and have never cheated on my wife. I spent years working in the IT department of a financial institution, climbing the ranks from a simple programmer to an executive overseeing a large department. It took long hours and frequent travel overseas, particularly to places like India and Brazil, as outsourcing ramped up. And yes, that part was rough. Watching close friends lose their jobs to cheap labor never set well with me. What the corporation didn't realize was that I had been quietly putting up chances for our top employees abroad for years. I had built a strong network of industry connections, and it was now paying off. I negotiated excellent retention and severance packages for my team, ensuring that those who stayed the required 6 months to train their offshore replacements walked away, not just with a solid severance, but also a substantial bonus. Because of my contacts, I had arranged for them to start a new work at a similar firm 2 weeks after being laid off, with the same or higher compensation. If the leadership had found out what I had prepared, I would have been dismissed on the spot. As for me, I negotiated a deal where I also received a very lucrative package, and the company bumped up my time of service to actually let me retire. I then just had to leave for 6 months and they would take me back at my present salary, but at a lower-level position. All I needed to do was mentor the new management team. One extra side benefit was I could work remotely. My office was basically any place that had an internet connection. What resulted was my being at home all day and night and working to what amounted to about 4 to 6 hours over a 24-hour period. That is a pretty sweet deal. Since I was home, I assumed the primary role of housekeeping shopper, laundry worker, and cook. I didn't mind as for the past 20 years, due to my lengthy work hours, all that work fell on my wife, Rachel. She never complained, really, but I always felt guilty. My doing this now for the past 5 years has made me feel much better. I still don't feel I have made amends, but it is a start. Rachel is my wife of 22 years. She is 44 years old and a beauty. She is 5 feet 5 inches and weighs in at 120 pounds. I met her 24 years ago on the beach. It was a Bo Derek moment. She was just getting out of the water and doing one of those head moves, whipping her hair back, and I was on the sand, watching her every move. She had on a one-piece suit that fit her so well, high sides, low top, and oh, that moment. Turn the clock forward. 20 years and 2 children later, she is still a knockout. Rachel works downtown for one of the remaining large insurance corporations. She has been there since we married. Her schedule is fairly consistent, with her leaving for work around 8 a.m. and returning home at 6:30 p.m. 3 times a week, she takes her lunch or spare time to work out at the office fitness center. It could be a yoga class, an elliptical machine, or a treadmill. She showers and then gets home all at the same time as non-workout days. She rarely has a girls' night out, but once every few months, she will have dinner and drink after work with a few of her close pals. It is always at a local restaurant and not a club, and I have an open invitation to join that I have used often. Now here is where my story begins. We fell into quite the routine regarding my wife's return home from work. She would always make a beeline to the kitchen table and drop her backpack in the left chair at the end, farthest from where we sat for dinner. The table sat 6, but since the kids had long moved out, we just utilized one in closet to the appliances and counter space. The far end became a place for mail and her backs. She would say, "Hi, hon," and then, either following it with a short statement of "today's sucked" or "what a great day." Her next move was to make the simple announcement, "I am going up to change." My instant reply would be, "But I adore you just the way you are." She would follow up with, "Oh, you're so cute," and then walk over to me and give me a quick peck on the lips and head upstairs. Upstairs, she would wash her face and remove her makeup. She would then put her hair back with some sort of headband and finally put on her comfy. So she called them and then sit down with me and chat about the day. While she is upstairs, I would create some sort of pre-dinner cocktail. It was that way every workday for the last 5 years until today. Today was just a tiny bit different, but it was enough out of the norm for me to catch. At the time, I had no idea what it meant, if anything, and I just let it go as I didn't know what to say or why I would say anything. What happened today was, instead of the little peck on the lips, I got an air kiss. You know the kind you see on TV shows where two women who don't really like each other meet at some social event, and they just ever so softly pucker their lips and slap the air near one another. It was that quick little gesture. But what I also noticed as she quickly breezed by was the usual light scent of her perfume, but also a very unusual light scent of cigarette smoke that didn't hit me as anything wrong. But since she has never come home from work with any kind of smoke smell, I found it strange. You can't smoke in the building at her place of work, nor on the grounds. Restaurants and bars are all now smoke-free. The only time she smelled of smoke was when she went to the casino. And then it would be a knock me over. Smoke smell. Rachel was once a smoker, but that was well over 20 years ago when we dated. She came from a family of smokers while I was from a non-smoking family. She quit sometime during our engagement as she felt uneasy and uncomfortable smoking among my family. She only had what is referred to as a social cigarette with friends in the first few months of our marriage. I hadn't seen her smoke since, so I said nothing in the evening, continued as normal, and so did the next week. No more air kisses and no more smell of smoke. But then it started to happen again. Not every day, but more often. It began to be several days per week, but there was no set pattern. It was not like every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. It was just random. Still, I let it go. The second change that occurred was with her fingernails. Rachel likes a mani-pedi. It is her vacation for a few hours where she is pampered and comes back rested and feeling attractive. I cannot recall the last time she polished, filed, or clipped her own nails every other week, or on demand. If we have a social occasion, she goes to the salon. She does not obtain the long false nails you see on certain women. Rachel always prefers what she calls natural length. She once had the long false nails when she was a bridesmaid. She couldn't stand it since she could not type. She was afraid to use the phone because she might break a nail. The pain associated with tearing off your fingernail terrified her. After the wedding, those nails didn't last the week. So imagine my shock when she came home, this time with long fake nails. Not flaming red as you may think, but a natural look or color, but long again. I did not say anything. If she mentioned it, I would have questions, but I wanted to see where this was going. This behavior, if you can call it that, persisted for the following month. Days with the same old routine, and nowadays with the new routine, as well as the upkeep of the new long artificial nails. My mind was whirling. What was creating the cigarette smoke? Why the switch to longer nails? Nothing else was out of whack. Sex was frequent and great conversation was plentiful. No girls' night out or unexpected business trips. But I needed to know. I was confused and I was curious. It was early into the third month when things came to a head. It was Saturday morning at breakfast when she told me she was going shopping with her girlfriend, Diana. Diana was a former co-worker who had moved a few towns away. They wanted to go outlet shopping, which was approximately an hour away from our house. She said that with the distance and the fact she had a lot to catch up on, that she would be gone most of the day. This is not unusual for her, and I had no reason not to trust or believe her. It was, for all intents and purposes, a non-issue. I told her to have fun and that I would find plenty of things to do around the house and in the yard so she didn't have to worry. Later that morning, she was off and gave me a big kiss goodbye. About 7:30 that evening, I felt like going out for a quick bite to eat, and was just opening the entrance to the garage at the same minute Rachel was going to enter. It was one of those weird moments when I pulled the door while she was about to push. We came face to face in an instant, about to collide. You know how at those times you are startled and exclaim, so in that instant, for the first time, there was smoke on her breath. She excitedly drew back and said she had to pee and rushed by me to the bathroom. I don't know why I did it, but I then went to her car, which had the window down, and looked inside. The smell of smoke was strong, and I could see ashes on the floor beside the driver's seat. I had to snoop. I searched around in the glove box and under the seat, and then in the center armrest console. Nothing was out of the ordinary. But then something caught my eye. I saw a small makeup bag in the armrest. It was familiar, as she always takes something with her. You know what is usually inside? The basic mascara? Lipsticks? Compact hair ties, but what caught my eye was the rectangular shape outline on the back. I never noticed that before opening the bag. I saw a lighter and a pack of cigarettes. I mentioned that Rachel smoked when we dated, but she was a Marlboro girl. She never smoked anything but Marlboros. Why did she have this brand in her back? Even if she said they were not hers, they were in her makeup bag in her car. Now, I am not someone that will wait 6 months for a pie report with video and audio. This is not proof of an affair. All it means is she is smoking again. But why? How do I find out? Well, I can ask her, of course, but what will I get for an answer? You never know until you try. I took the cigarettes out of the bag and went back into the house. Once in the house, I could hear the shower running, so I knew she was covering up the smell. I went upstairs to the bedroom to check the clothing. I did a wash that morning, so the only thing in the hamper would be her clothes. Looking in the hamper, I found the clothes she was wearing. Smelling of cigarettes, but no panties. None. The only time in our life together that she had no panties on was in bed, or when she wore a bathing suit. She never went commando, so the underwear had to be in the bathroom with her, or she went commando, or she left them someplace. I went into the house and decided to call Diana. Sure, she could cover for her, but like I said earlier, you never know until you try. We still had an old-school phone book we kept. I know in modern times we all have cell phones, but Rachel still used this for when she wrote out our Christmas cards. I wouldn't have Diana's number in my contacts, and I didn't have Rachel's phone handy to check her contacts. When I called Diana's, her husband Jeff answered. I asked if Rachel had left her watch there. He sounded taken aback and said, "Why would her watch be here? I haven't seen Rachel since you both were here 6 months ago." I then explained how Rachel and Diana spent the day shopping. His reply sealed the deal for me when he informed me that Diana has been at her mother's in San Diego all week. He asked what was going on, and all I could say was I was going to find out and hung up. I went upstairs to the bedroom as the shower had stopped, when the bathroom door opened and Rachel came out. She was startled to see me. I simply stepped past her and started looking for the panties. I saw nothing on the floor or in any of the drawers and nothing in the linen closet. She came in a bit upset and asked what was I doing. I angrily said, "Come downstairs and we will talk," and stormed out. A few minutes later, she was dressed and came down to the kitchen where I was sitting, and she took a firm posture and said, "What's wrong with you? Why are you acting so weird?" I said, "Why the shower?" And then I held out the cigarettes and said, "I found these, but I couldn't find your panties. Who has them?" There was a long pause. She sat down, looking at the table and not me, and said nothing. "Rachel, for over 20 years, I never lied to you. I think now you at least tell me the truth. For 3 months now I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what. There is the faint smell of cigarettes, the long nails, the avoidance of the kiss when you get home from work, and now the lie about Diana and the haste to shower. I know Diana is out of state visiting her mother. I called. What has been happening at work has finally escalated to the point of you telling me lies so you could spend a day with him, whoever he is. Time to come clean. Up until now, I thought I knew my wife. I fully expected the denial and anger in her somehow coming up with some story and turning this all on me, as if I am a controlling and manipulative person. Instead, what she did next came as quite a shock, with tears in her eyes. She slowly reached out and took the cigarette pack and lit one up. After a long drag, she exhaled and said, "Sorry, but I need this." She then began to tell me her story. I actually found her calmness unsettling. It all started about 6 months ago when I was assigned to work with the mergers and acquisition team. The company had plans to enter into the healthcare market, and with my former positions in the legal department, working with the lobbyist. In my experience as the chief of staff for several former departments, they felt I would be a great addition to the team. It would be more clerical and research than I do now, and offer excellent visibility. No promotion or pay raise now, but it would really set me up for the near future. Later that week, we were all told to meet in the boardroom for the introductory meeting and hold a kickoff, a meet and greet sort of thing, and then receive our assignments. That is when, I guess you can say, the trouble started as soon as he walked in. I was awestruck. It was an instant attraction. I felt like I was hit with lightning. I saw you. I saw you just as you were when you were 30 years old. He had the same hair, same face, and same mannerisms. It was like I was transported back in time. With the exception of being larger, it was you. Bigger? I asked. Well, he is like 6 feet tall and broader. But remember, you also had a firm and strong physique as well. You were and are just shorter. I guess, but he is bigger, I said, intentionally insinuating not in height. Her look told me all I needed to know. It's not like that, honey. That's not what I was after. I love you, and I love how we make love. Just go on. I don't want to hear about your sex with your sex buddy. She let out a gasp, took another drag of the cigarette, and continued. I stared at him the entire time, not hearing a word of the presentation. He would catch me looking, but he paid no attention to me. I was just another person at the table. For some reason, that pissed me off. I somehow felt like it was you that was not interested in me. I must have lost my mind because at that time, I felt that I had to take the initiative, and I had to win you over. It was again, like when we were young and dating, and I did everything I could to keep you. It was like I was losing you. A week or two went on, and I did everything I could to gain his attention, but he was very professional and treated me no different than anyone else. I didn't know what I was going to do. Then something happened that gave me my window of opportunity. The director said we would form small teams that would work on individual assignments, and then once a week, we would regroup as a larger team and report on our progress. I knew the person who was to determine who paired up, and I asked if they would put Ethan and me together. Ethan, that is the guy who took my wife. Yes, I mean no. Yes, his name is Ethan. Ethan Carter. But no, he didn't take your wife. I was the aggressor, and I am. And I will always be your wife. We'll see about that. She shuddered a bit, took another drag, and then continued. Once we were paired up, we spent all day together. I just kept seeing you. And again, in my fantasy world, we were transported back in time. I must have been insane. I do not know. But again, the more he just acted like I was a common coworker, the more I felt I was losing you. You had no interest in me. I turned up the flirting. I would touch his hand, his shoulder. I would sit closer and give him what I thought was sexy looks. He never said anything, but I noticed he didn't remove my hands. She finished the cigarette and lit another. What about the smoking? Have you been a closet smoker all these years and just get careless? As we worked closely together, I learned Ethan was a smoker. He took frequent breaks, and when he came back, I could smell the smoke. One day when he was going for a break, I asked if I could go along. I said we could continue to discuss the project while he had his cigarette. Since there is no smoking allowed on company grounds, we would go across the street to the small cafe. We would get a coffee and then sit outside at the park. One day he saw me staring at him while he smoked, and he apologized and asked if his smoking bothered me. I told him no and mentioned that I was once a smoker, but quite a long time ago. This continued on for a few more weeks, and then one day I figured that if I smoke, then maybe we would have some connection. We would have something in common. I asked him for one of his cigarettes. That is what got me smoking again. I moved my workout time from noon to later in the day, so I would shower at work using the fitness center before coming home. But on days when we had later meetings, I couldn't. So I guess those are the days you started smelling smoke on my clothes. The nails? I asked at some point when Ethan and I were at the park smoking. I saw him looking at me, and it was the look I had been waiting for. He showed an interest. His gaze was the same. I see you give me when you were just daydreaming about something. And when I catch you looking, it makes me feel sexy and want it. I just smiled at him and said, "What?" He blushed. He actually blushed at being caught. He told me he thinks pretty women who smoke are sexy. I was sexy. He said he always had a thing for girls smoking long white cigarettes with long nails. Now at this time, I didn't have long nails, and we were smoking his brand of cigarettes. Newports feature a cork filter. That's when I decided to get my nails done and purchase my own cigarettes. It was at this point when things between us became serious. We continued to take these breaks multiple times every day, but we also added lunches. We had lunch together frequently, but it had become a daily occurrence, and we would drive to other places rather than talk about work. We discussed everything and anything. We were becoming a couple. That is an emotional issue. Even without the intercourse, I consider it cheating. No, Grant. We did not have sex. It was only lunch. How do I know this? Could you be making out while petting? You could give him a BJ on the way back to work. No, I did not do any of that. It was only lunch and holding hands. We could not accomplish it. We would get caught, and neither of us wanted to be fired. So the concern was of losing your work, not of losing your husband. It was not like that. Remember, in my mind, I was with you, not him. Yeah. The bigger I get, the more I understand. The tears became to sobs, and she appeared devastated. Ethan urged me to join him for supper. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't. As perplexed as I was, I knew I had to return home every night, and there was no way I could have supper with him and still make it home. I rarely worked late, so anything like that would be a dead giveaway. So if you could understand that, you weren't insane for thinking this was me. You understood the difference. If you had believed he was me, as you said, you would have expected to have supper with me. Now I sound nuts. So, regardless of your previous state of mind, you were suddenly a saint. As can be, we were concerned about being caught up in your affair. I guess you're correct. So today was your response to canceling the dinner date? You understood how trusting I was, so you made up the shopping excursion? So you could spend an entire day with your sex buddy? Yes. I am deeply sorry, Grant. I'm not sure why I did it, and I will not do it again. I'll terminate it right now and do whatever you want so we can make things right. I love you, Grant. Rachel, I don't love you anymore. I adore the Rachel I originally met. The Rachel I married was the Rachel I knew until 3 months ago. Rachel stands in front of me right now. I do not like what you did. It was wrong. But let's be honest, it's just part of your personality. I'm not a shrink, and I've never studied people's thoughts. But I believe you were able to cheat because it was always in you and would eventually come out. If not now, try tomorrow or next year, or perhaps another decade. This ridiculous assumption about a younger version of myself is nothing more than an excuse. I mean, this is an extremely ridiculous reason. It was a younger me. Really? Do you think I'm so stupid? You insult my intelligence beyond belief. For whatever reason, you wanted to cheat and went after an available young stud. That's the truth. You're a cheater. Plain and simple. Grant, honey, I was not thinking that. I'm not sure what I was thinking, and I'll stop. I will not cheat again. I compare a cheater to an alcoholic. Right or wrong? That is my analogy from birth. A person does not realize they are an alcoholic. They can drink for years and keep it under control. But eventually, one drink becomes too many, and they are consumed. They can go to AA and get and stay sober, but some people go off the wagon, as they say, and the cycle begins again. There is sadness and remorse. They then become sober again and are able to maintain it. However, some will return to drinking, and the cycle will repeat itself. I genuinely don't think you can cure alcoholism. You spend every day just keeping it under control. So how do I know this is going to be a one-time thing? How do I know you will not have a relapse? Seriously, how do I know you won't cheat again at some unknown time in the future? This won't happen again. You need to believe me. Please give me an opportunity to prove it. You say that will not happen again, and you say you apologized. I sincerely believe you, but neither of us knows if you can or are capable of regulating it. Somehow you have the cheating gene. And even if you were powerful enough to manage it, I am not strong enough to live in fear or doubt. Every day I looked at you and wondered if this was the day. Every time I detect a shift in your conduct, I will assume you cheated. It would make no difference if you did or not. Then there's the fact that you had sex with another person. I'm not sure what you did, and I honestly don't want to hear about it. However, the mental images that flow through my mind offend me. I kissed your lips. Where have they been? I was close to you. But now I can't stop thinking if I was just a part of something else. I'm not sure, but the thought lingers. Should we ever have sex again? Would you be thinking about me or him? Is he a better kisser than me? Will you wish I was taller and stronger? Do the things, and I bet he did. Even if I could obtain arousal, I would lose it. When I look at you now, I get permanent ed and feel horrible to my stomach. I believe I would do better with protection and a street hooker. You have wrecked not just what we had, but also my inner being for what I fear will be a very long time. This was the only occasion ever. There was no second opportunity. He was no better at anything than you. It is over. Rachel. For over 20 years, I gave you what you desired, both emotionally and monetarily. It is now gone. The big house has a nicely kept yard and a large in-ground pool. We never utilize our summer cottage on the beach. We rented before and after we had children. You simply had to own it for nostalgic reasons. We recently had a new house built for retirement. You insisted on doing it now as an investment. So when we were ready to retire, we moved closer to the cottage, built up equity in the property, and grew old together while watching the grandchildren you wished for. We hadn't possessed it in a year, and it's now gone. Most significantly, you've lost the respect of your family. What will the kids and our combined brothers and sisters, cousins, aunts, and uncles think of you after all of this is revealed? I'm not going to fight an attempt to make you look like a horrible bitch, leaving you impoverished and beaten. It wouldn't work anyway, because we live in a no-fault state. I have no idea how this works because I am not a divorce attorney, but I am hoping we can simply share everything 50-50. This is unfortunate for me because I did nothing to earn it. And sure, it is my decision to divorce, not yours. But, as horrible as pride and ego can be, I'm not going to stay with you and be roommates. Hopefully, we can agree to sign over the cottage to the kids so that it remains in the family. We set up a timetable so that we all have time there and don't have to worry about seeing one another. This home was going to be sold regardless. Next year, we simply bump the schedule up. The new house in New Hampshire is a different tale. I'm not sure what we would get out of it, if anything. So we may discuss if you should accept it and pay the mortgage. Or should I keep it and pay my mortgage? Your job requires you to stay in Connecticut, whereas mine allows me to live outside the state. I don't see myself having to pay alimony because we both make equal money. But there is always a risk. You get a devil of a lawyer, or some judge views things differently. Let's agree to strive to keep our own 401 cases. You know we all need that. But again, if it must be divided, so be it. We still all go away with a nice sum. By the way, if you believe you're in a long-term relationship with Ethan, think again. You mentioned that when you met, He showed little interest. It wasn't until he understood you'd offered him the option for some free and easy sex. Has he responded to your advances? What young guy with the morals to screw a married woman would reject you? Sure. Now you'll be available. Nothing changes. He will continue to mistreat you for as long as he wants. Hell, even if he finds a younger piece, he'll probably continue to screw you. However, your situation will change. It will be all sex, no love. Don't think this will be silent. He will undoubtedly talk. If he hasn't informed his buddies already, he will, everywhere at work. People will know what you did, and you will become the divorced easy lay. Don't be concerned about a lack of sex. You'll receive plenty of offers. It will take a long time for you to find true love again. However, every sex hound in the organization, married or not, young or old, will perceive you as an easy target and will hit on you day after day. It does not sound like a particularly interesting future. I can't kick you out of the house because it's in both our names. Plus, I don't understand why I should have to pay for a hotel when I done nothing wrong. Until the divorce is finalized, you will live in the spare bedroom while I stay in the master. I have no plans to bring someone home, so don't worry. I ask the same of you. I don't want to know where you're going. Whoever you are with, never bring anyone here, ever. From now until then, we will be roommates sharing a house. I'm done talking for the time being, and frankly, I've heard enough from you. If you still want to talk, perhaps we can find some time in a few days after we've collected our thoughts and calmed down. For the time being, all I want is to be alone before going to organize my files. Tomorrow, I have a 10-hour appointment with a lawyer, and that is how my marriage ended. It has barely been 6 months since the divorce. Rachel did not fight, and everything happened pretty much as planned. The exception is that we did not sell the house in Connecticut. Rachel needed a home to live, but wasn't sure where she wanted to live, nor was she able to secure one with her portion of the selling proceeds. We have agreed that some action must be taken within a year, so she still has time to work everything out. I did receive the house at the age where I now live. It's not the perfect retirement we had hoped for, but it's still a nice little house with plenty of outdoor activities. I continue to run and fish, but I do so alone. Prior to her activities, our family experienced a significant setback. She was quite close to my son and daughter-in-law. You've heard the phrase that your daughter is your daughter for the rest of your life. But your son is your son until he gets married. That wasn't true for Rachel and our son. Even after marriage, they were close. When my son found out what his mother done, he severed all relations. He ignores her calls and goes so far as to remark that if he has a child, he will have to think long and hard before allowing Rachel into its life. I've talked to him about how cold he is, and I believe, or hope, that at some point he will warm up. It doesn't have to be precisely the same as it was, but losing touch is painful. Rachel understands that I do not condone such behavior, but he is his own man. Our daughter had always been close to me. It was a real daddy's girl issue. I spent more time with my daughter Linda than my son Alex. Well, that has changed now. She rarely spoke with me except to phone and tell me I was a jerk for divorcing Rachel. She puts everything on my obstinate masculine ego and says it's my insecurities that won't let things go. She's correct, you know. But that's who I am. Pity. Am I losing anything? Well, no. But my daughter recently lost her half of my assets. I gave everything I had to my son, who supported me, so that my daughter may inherit her mother's possessions. Rachel calls me frequently, but not to ask for forgiveness or to reconcile. It is really the only way she learns anything about our son. In return, I learn about my daughter's life. Our mutual friends keep us informed about one another, since she doesn't tell me what's new in her life, and I don't tell her what I'm doing. She understands that I am not actively hunting for her successor, and I am aware that she is waiting for me to make the first step toward reconciliation. She tells everyone that she realizes she made a huge mistake and wants us to reconcile. She believes that if she goes out to lunch with a guy and I find out, she will be cheating and ruining her chances. We are divorced, so this is not accurate. But if she wants to remain celibate, that is entirely up to her. I don't ever picture myself with her again. My imagination often runs wild, and I see her with Ethan, and the rage and pain resurface. No one can tell me when or how to end it. But until then, I'm where I am, and she's where she is. A year later, I'd just finished cleaning up after dinner. I was startled by the doorbell, which only takes a few minutes now since dinner is always for one. I say astonished, because since I've been living here for a year, it's only been rung when a delivery guy left a box, and I wasn't expecting any. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see my daughter Linda. "Hello, Dad." In disbelief, I simply stared at her, saying nothing until she broke the quiet. "Are you going to invite me in?" "Sure." "Sorry, hun. I really did not anticipate you, and you totally caught me off surprise. Please come inside." She quickly searched the room before sitting down on the sofa. "I would give you something to eat, but I don't have anything to offer. Do you want a drink?" "I was going to get a beer and watch the news. Sure, I'll drink a beer." "Whatever you drink is fine." I went to the fridge and took a couple of local IPAs, saying, "So, what brought you here after so long?" I wanted to apologize, but using the phone would be too impersonal. "Sorry, I believe I am the one who should apologize, Dad. We all messed up. I've been talking to Alex. You had been talking to your brother when I intervened." "Really?" "Yes. We've had a lot of conversations over the past few months, and I believe we've returned to our previous position." "Before?" "You are aware of the divorce. That makes me feel amazing, hun. I really disliked what transpired between you and your brother, just because of what happened with your mother and myself." "Dad, the divorce devastated our family. I am not saying anything to make you feel awful. It's simply that you and your mother were not the only ones who split. How our emotions seized control. The entire family got divorced. You divorced Mom. I divorced you, Alex. Mom divorced, and Alex and I got divorced. We broke up the family. This past year has been awful. That's an interesting way to phrase things. But it is true, we all let our wrath and emotions run wild. It took me a long time to comprehend the extent of the harm. I've called everyone, including your mother, and tried to stay in touch. I understand, but our calls were clinical and almost businesslike. It wasn't the same as before you called, but I didn't participate much. Alex never phoned Mom and rarely called me. You were the only one making any try, but to be honest, it was not an attempt at reconciliation. It seemed as if both you and we were going through the motions. So what brought this about? How did you and Alex reconnect? This year we celebrated our birthdays. I sent Alex a card, and he sent me one. There was no call, cake, or gift. It was only a simple card with a simple signature. It struck me hard. I remembered all of the wonderful, happy events we had, and how my grandparents on both sides were very family-oriented. Our grandparents would tell us that if they were still living, they would never have let us drift so far apart so soon. So just as I arrived here, I paid Alex a visit. I expected him to toss me off the porch, but instead he nearly crushed me to death with his hug. I wish I were there to witness it. We chatted all night. It was a come-to-Jesus moment. We both understood we should not have chosen sides. It was a difficult time, Linda. It all happened so quickly and caught us off guard. She proceeded. I understand that he is like you and understands. I am just like my mother, yet there is no reason or excuse for how we reacted. Talking with Alex helped me realize that what Mom did had nothing to do with my ideas on women's rights. She committed infidelity. She broke her marriage vows. Her liberty to do whatever she wants does not imply that cheating on a spouse is okay. If she wanted to experiment, she should have talked to you first and asked for a divorce. Even if it was painful, she would not have been deceptive in telling you such nonsense. Yes, Mom informed me about it. She has never been able to think quickly on her feet. I guess that proves she is not a seasoned liar. Your mother has never lied to me, except for the one occasion. Sure, there was some misdirection, as I call it, but nothing like this. I suppose that contributed significantly to the shock. It was very out of character for her. How about Alex? Alex quickly realized that he was being overly hard. He let his fury get the best of him, and disowning both Mom and me was excessive. Just because I sided with Mom doesn't mean he has to ignore me. We've had arguments before, and we've always agreed to disagree. This may have been a comparable reaction, allowing us to communicate and reach an agreement far more quickly than we did. I believe what helped us both reconcile was that neither of us was willing to accept what Mom did. We both agreed that was wrong. Divorce resulted from our disagreements. He thinks you did the right thing, but I believe you were too fast to draw the trigger. I could not accept it. Linda, Dad, hold on, I am not completed. We understand that while this impacts the entire family, the choice ultimately rests with you and your mother. We became very obsessed with this and took things too far. We simply have to accept the fact that the divorce occurred. However, this does not imply that we must part ways with our parents. We gave up on you all. You two never gave up on us. I've always known you were a bright kid. So, is Alex speaking to his mother? Yes, but only recently. He speaks once a week, and they are close, but not as close as before. He's not angry, if you get what I mean. But he's still bitter. I believe he will warm up soon. But what worries me is if Mom starts dating again. I'm not sure how he'll respond because he sees it as a sign that it's finally finished. I mean, he understands the divorce terminated their marriage, but seeing her with another man is like a final blow. It's destined to happen sooner or later. Your mother is a beautiful woman. And quite the catch. Ethan should be pleased. Cheap shot, Dad. He hasn't been present at all. Mom hasn't seen anyone since that day. What a waste. That honestly irritates me more than if she had fallen in love with someone else. I mean, to abandon a marriage for a one-time sex. Dad, do not go there. Saying things like that won't help anyone. She isn't dating anyone. She loves you, so no more experimentation, as you described it. No, Dad. As previously said, she has never dated or gone out with anyone. Why not you? You know she loves you, but you are not dating anyone. Linda, I told you that it was over. I know she loves me and I love her, but I still can't get over what she did. So any attempt on either part will fail. You say you speak to her. What are you talking about? How? Stuff? Mostly. Like the furnace wasn't working, so she asked who I should call and if I could examine the estimate. Also, we had been remodeling the property, so she recently inquired about hardwood floors for the upstairs, as well as who to contact and what a reasonable pricing would be. She also kept me up to date on your recent promotions. I called to congratulate you, but I only got your voicemail box. You never called back. I apologize for that, Dad, but that's it. Just household chat. Yes. Just doing housework and catching up with your children. She told me about you, and I provided her information on Alex. She claims you never asked to see her. That's correct. I do not ask her, and she does not ask to see me. Wouldn't you? Why? Why would I go see her if I have no intention of getting back together? Why mislead her or give her false hopes? This is just wishful thinking on my part. I believe she wants to talk to you about why and see if you still have a spark for her. She claims you never gave her the chance to explain. I certainly didn't at the time. I knew she was telling me lies, and I honestly thought the more she spoke, the more enraged and upset I would become. I was frightened of what she would say. What if I'm at fault? What if I fail as a spouse or lover? What if she had admitted that I was the reason for her betrayal? I couldn't handle hearing the whys, how long it took, or how it was a mistake. She wants closure, Father. It's awful to leave her hanging like this. If you love her, can't you spend some time with her in person? It may also benefit you. You are merely existing, not living. You just work. Do your run alone, then sit at home. I'm being cruel. I am not pestering her. I'm not standing in her path. I told you that if I started seeing her, I might give her false hope. Dad, I am not advocating you should date her, but I think I would enjoy it. I'm just saying to listen to her. You may communicate your emotions, and she can do the same. If anything, you can tell her directly yet politely. Why? You never wanted to hear her perspective. You can tell her that you will not date her. You can tell her to date someone else. You can say whatever the hell you want. But please, if not for her or your sake, would you do it for mine? Let me think about it. No promises. Okay, I adore you, Dad. And she hugged me. We spent the next few hours catching up on her social and business lives, and I told her how little I had done since the divorce, which amazed even me. She was correct again. I exist. I do not live. I recommended she spend the night, but she had to leave early the next day for work, which was about a 3-hour trip away from my house. So we bid our goodbyes. I thought how fortunate I was to have her back in my life. 2 weeks later, on Saturday, Rachel called me. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Grant. Sorry for bothering you, but the John Deere is not working. I needed to mow the lawn, but it wouldn't start. Who did you use for service? Have you called Larry or Kevin? Come over and check. Larry and Kevin are longtime neighbors. Yes, that was the first thing I did. They inspect the batteries in the fuses and find them to be in fine condition. They are the ones that stated that I need a professional to check into this. Okay. I utilize the Capital Service in Manchester. They're right off North Main Street. It may cost you around $300, but they do wonderful work. And I always felt they were honest and just completed what was required. Never padded the bill. Thank you, Grant. Only one more thing. How can I get it from the shed? I tried pushing it, but it would not move. You must break off and detach the transmission. You are kidding. How do I disconnect the transmission? Easy. It's a tiny, narrow rod formed like an upside-down L that sits immediately below the seat and faces the back. Simply pull it out and it is removed, allowing the tractor to operate freely. You simply push it to the driveway and the guy who arrives does the rest. I can't push that massive monster. Ask Larry or Kevin. They should have done it for you while they were present. Well, they left. I suppose I could wait and call them again. Alternatively, you could do it. Me? I'm 3 hours away. Why would I go all the way there to push a tractor a few yards into the driveway? It would assist me out. And you do not have to depart immediately soon. We can converse and maybe even eat dinner. Grant, we have not seen each other in a year. I'd like it if you came. Is the tractor actually dead? Conveniently. Yes. Have you talked to Linda recently? I bet she's behind this. Yes, Grant. She came over just recently and inquired if you had phoned. When I answered no, she basically told me the ball was in my court. And if I wanted to see you, I needed to take matters into my own hands. So, please just this one time. I promise not to bring up anything you don't want to talk about. If I say something that makes you uncomfortable, simply tell me to stop and I will. Tomorrow I will leave early and arrive before noon. But, Rachel, you okay? No. Children, neighbors, or anyone else? Of course. Thank you, Grant. This means a lot to me. She sounded so sad while speaking, and I worried if I had made the correct decision. I arrived at my former home just before noon on Sunday. The property had not changed at all, and I was relieved to see Rachel had kept the grass in wonderful condition. The flower beds she adored were similarly well kept, and the colors of all the plants stood out against my dreary, sad expression. I told myself to put up a nice front and try to be civil. Rachel must have been looking for me as she walked out the door, just as I put my car in park. Hello, Grant. Thank you for arriving so soon. I really don't want the lawn to get too high or I'll have to rake. Not an issue. Rachel. It's about time I made an appearance anyway. The location looks fantastic. You have done an excellent job of maintaining it. Is it a year or so? It's time to sell. I had Ben Smith from the real estate company stop by and give me some pointers. He's done well for us in the past, so I thought we should offer him this listing. I think we should talk about it. When I had to sell the house as part of the divorce, it was primarily out of bitterness. Why should you keep the paid-off house while I have a mortgage? I plan to use the money to help pay down the mortgage, but now I believe you should stay here. You've demonstrated your ability to manage the place on your own, and I can continue to make mortgage payments. I want to maintain my name on the deed, and if you decide to relocate, we can make arrangements then. Can we do that? I can ask my attorney. I don't understand why not. I'd enjoy that. I could help with the New Hampshire mortgage. I may send you a check for half each month. That seems fair to me. However, your name does not appear on the deed for the New Hampshire residence. It does not matter to me. Can you afford to give me a check every month? Sure. You'd be shocked how my spending has altered since I no longer had your salary and have had to make adjustments. Linda was actually a great assistance. Her income is poor, but she dresses nicely for work, and her rent is higher than I would send you. She taught me how to be frugal, a concept I had previously associated with being cheap, that I do not believe. I laughed. Seriously, I'm down to one closet now. I buy excellent pieces that can be mixed and matched. The quality of the outfit is what matters now, not the price, and no more hundreds of shoes that I don't need. I stole a page from your book and have a couple pairs of colors that can go with a variety of outfits. I believe you, but I'm still startled. Would you like to come in for a drink or something afterwards? Let us have a look at the lawn tractor. We headed to the shed, not saying anything to each. Rachel led the way, and I couldn't help but notice her. She was still as lovely as she had always been, with a stunning figure to match. She was dressed simply and casually. She was dressed in faded blue jeans that were comfortable to wear, a fitted but not too tight cotton t-shirt. One of her multicolored headbands held her hair back and away from her face. I recall her buying something in one of her favorite craft stores. I felt as if a year had not gone and the event had never happened. But as swiftly as that feeling arrived, it vanished, replaced by sadness over what I had lost. I'm not sure what happened. I used it a few days ago and everything went good. Now I turn the key, but it doesn't start. Larry and Kevin both tried, but couldn't figure it out. Are you okay? You don't look very well. No, I am fine. Just got caught in thought for a minute. Let me try to acquire a better understanding of what's going on. I sat on the tractor and made sure the brakes were locked. The blade engagement lever was turned off, and the gas was at maximum choke. I turned the key and heard the starting run, but there was no ignition or spark. I identified the situation right away because it had occurred 3 years earlier. I climbed out of the seat and opened the hood. I could smell the urine right away. Mice. Mice. Rachel looked at me, curious. Yes, mice. This has happened before. They collect dried grass clippings from around the blade enclosure and establish a nest behind the plastic cover above the motor. In this model, the starting is located directly below where they nest, and their urine leaks into the motor and binds to some part of the starter. At least that's what the man at the shop told me last time. I can smell it from here, and I'm sure if I remove the cover, you'd see the mess. Since then, I've always made an effort to blow off the grass and clean it up to the best of my ability. I didn't realize that. I feel so dumb. It is not your fault. I never told you, but I'm surprised Larry and Kevin didn't smell the urine. I will push the mower. You do the steering. Let's move it closer to the driveway. You can call Capital tomorrow, AM. It should cost you around $500. If they say anything else, please phone me. Thank you, hon. She stated that was the first time in a long time. Hun, rather than Grant. It did not go unnoticed. I did not respond or offer any intelligent remark. Okay, let's have that drink now. Sure, Rachel, I'd enjoy that. I'll get some drinks and snacks. Why don't you sit inside the pool? Cabana in the shade? I will be quick. Our pool cabana was one of her more creative ideas. Just after we had the built-in pool installed, the entire back patio side of the house was covered with stamped concrete. She had the cabana erected. The third quarter was a screen house with an electric ceiling fan. There's also some extremely excellent outside furniture. The cabana's remaining space was transformed into a bar. A sliding glass door with a screen separated the two. The ladies would sit outside, bug-free, and speak while the guys drank, played cards, talked sports, or did all three at once. I used to have a beer fridge in there as well, but I discovered that the neighborhood kids would sneak over and steal my beer instead of locking the fridge. I just removed it. A cooler worked just as well. When we entertained, the memories began to flood my head. Rachel interrupted my trance as she entered the cabana. Not much has changed around here either. She extended out her left hand and offered me the beer. Your favorite IPA? No, it is not a leftover from previous year. I remember you constantly checked the bottle date to ensure it was still fresh. I picked these up yesterday night to ensure they were fresh and cold. I took the beer, and as she sat down, I noticed she had a beer for herself, as well as her cigarettes and ashtray, which she lighted. She stared at me, then at the cigarette, and mumbled something with an ashamed expression. At first, they helped me cope, but, of course, nicotine addiction set in. You don't need to explain to me that you're a big girl. I see you are at least returning to your own brand. Yes, every time I smoke a cigarette, I am reminded of the terrible mistake I committed and the consequences, almost like an appropriate penalty, but in no way was I going to stick with the Virginia Slim brand. I'll admit I prefer them. But this isn't about fun. Weird, to say the least. But I don't see any reason to continue punishing you. What's done is done. Smoking to punish yourself will not make things right or better. You'll develop the same health issues as your parents had. They died from smoking, and you've seen it firsthand. I understand. So let's shift the subject. I did not come here to lecture you on poor behaviors. Linda mentioned that you really wanted to talk. Yes. You never gave me an opportunity to talk. I was too surprised to say anything. For a year, I've kept everything within the building, and I don't believe I'll ever find closure if I never have the opportunity to tell you how I felt then, why I did what I did, and how I feel now. Will you allow me? Please. That's why I'm here. Linda described everything to me quite well. She also told me that she had reconciled with her brother and Alex, and you're now on speaking terms. It made me understand I'm the odd guy out. I talked to Linda and Alex, but the only conversations I've allowed with you have been about house upkeep or bill payment. I guess it's time. Thanks. She adjusted in her seat and sat cross-legged. She took a breath, turned away from me, and started. Before I begin, I need to know if you had any idea what was going on. I have a feeling you knew more than you let on. Not precisely. I sensed something was wrong, but I never suspected cheating. To be honest, I assumed you had resumed smoking but were too afraid to inform me. I could occasionally smell smoke on you, and you began to skip the welcome home kiss. Why didn't you say anything? I expected you to quit eventually, or you'd tell me. Confronting you didn't seem right at the moment. I did not want to appear judgmental. Remember that I had no notion there was another man. To me, it was about whether or not you smoked. The new long painted nails threw me off. I have no idea why you did that. To be honest, it didn't matter to me. If you wanted to try fresh nails for whatever reason, there was no problem again. Remember, I assumed you were doing this for yourself, not someone else. I wish you had said something. Perhaps it would have brought me back to my senses. That would have effectively halted it before it became permanent. Or would it have only delayed the inevitable? I believe that something like that must be chosen by you in order to be resolved permanently. Someone else halting it may have finished at that point. If I had been confident about the other guy, I would have intervened. However, I believe I will be following your every move for the rest of my life. And that is not the way to live. Thank you, Grant. That helps. She continued for years. I was the youngest at work. All of my co-workers and management were older and more professional. All of the conversation at the office, at lunch, or on any social night out was boring or routine. The conversation was about family and employment, grandchildren, and on occasion someone may have traveled and we discussed their vacation or trip. It was all very vanilla, bland, and, as I said, boring. It was also innocuous. However, a few years ago, either to retirement or transfers, the workplace demographics changed dramatically. Much younger ladies were introduced, and I gradually became the oldest in the department. The work chat has also altered. There is no more chatter about grandchildren or recipes, and very little about employment. Instead, they talked about their dates, boyfriends, and lovers. I, of course, remained out of the conversation because I believed it was inappropriate, but also because I had nothing to contribute. I wasn't going to share our sex life with these folks, and I didn't have anything to add from my history. I changed my position and nodded, letting her know I was listening. I did not want to say anything out of fear. She may take it the wrong way. She lit another smoke and proceeded. Anyway, as I mentioned, this had been going on for a few years, and as I continued to visit the gals for lunch, the conversation became more graphic. The conversation on the dates went much more explicit, including the sex and how some of the females were dating more than one guy. And they all shared what I think I can describe as each guy's sexual skill, and how they could never settle down with only one. The enthusiasm of what they called the finding was overwhelming. I asked about the discovery. Yes, it was what they called it when they would flirt with a guy and ultimately get near enough to attempt to get him excited so they could feel his eagerness and get a sense of how big he was. So they wanted to know if he had a huge meat, not just if he had one, but how big it was. What was its size? It was like a game. They wanted to try new guys, so that each time they had sex, it would be unique and maybe better than the previous. They said they weren't looking for the biggest, but after all their experience, they knew what they wanted. In certain circumstances, huge was too much, while little was too little. They set their goal for the evening after determining what they desired. That sounds frigid. They discussed all of this during lunch conversations. This type of chat was typically held after work happy hour, after a few drinks, and once the girls sized up the gathering, one of them invariably directed the conversation towards sex. And you felt left out, right? Most definitely. As I already stated, our sex life was none of their business. But what bothered me was the idea that I couldn't participate even if I wanted to. When we met, I was a virgin, and you were the only sexual partner I'd ever had. Any previous dates I had with you were limited to making out. There was some touching. I never did anything else before you and remained faithful till that one foolish day. Why does that bother you? You didn't know anything about these girls. You should have simply quit hanging out with them. I did cut back on happy hours, but the seed had already been planted. I couldn't shake the idea that I'd missed out on something. I didn't want to be a 304, and I wasn't disappointed that I didn't sleep around, but I began to wonder whether I had married too early. My countenance must have changed as she quickly went into defensive mode. Grant? Oh, no. Grant, I have no regrets about marrying you. I meant that if I wanted to know what sex was like with other men, I should have done it before becoming engaged and married. I never attended college, so I was never alone, and the only guys I ever met were the jackass townies. When you came along, it was love at first sight, and I never gave anyone else much thought. I know you have never regretted marrying me. I have no question about that, and I've never regretted marrying you. I simply wish something took away this emotion or want you had. It never came to the point where you needed to act on it. I told her that I could never apologize enough. So you were saying that all of the chatter about numerous sex partners intrigued you, but also left you feeling like you missed out on some important rite of passage that you simply had to have. I don't know, Grant, but I suppose so. It bothered me for a time, and as fantastic as I was with you, I felt compelled to try something new. It was supposed to be just that. A one-time event for which I had hoped and prayed. Nobody would ever know it was out of my system, and nothing would change. You knew there was always the possibility that I would find out, and you knew what I would do. You did it anyhow. I honestly did not expect you would find out, but my point is that, despite knowing the dangers, you decided it was worth taking the risk. That meant I was second. This joy was worth leaving me. Respect for the family, risking an STD, probably losing friendships. I never thought of you as less significant. Perhaps so, but your actions demonstrate that I was nonetheless. Now you understand why I did what I did, and I've said it 1,000,000 times. I regret ever lying to you or cheating on you. But what I truly want you to know and believe is that this was the only time. Nothing has happened before or since. I lost so much that I learned a painful lesson. I will never betray my family again. That's great to hear. But you are telling the incorrect person. I think the kids would like hearing that, and I am confident Linda believes you. Alex may be more difficult to persuade, but if he moves from occasionally talking to you to really visiting you and spending time with you, he too may warm up. And you. It does not matter to me. Remember, we are divorced. You cannot betray me. You are a free agent. So you can spend time with anyone. You can select and do whatever you want. I have no say in this subject. It does not have to be this way, Grant. You matter to me. I still love you, and I really want to get back together. I've been miserable without you. And haven't I suffered enough? How long should I be punished? Punished? Do you think this is punishment like a timeout? I never meant to punish you, Rachel. You did something I couldn't forgive, so I ended things. In fact, if I stayed and we had a sexless, chilly marriage for another 30 years, I would be punishing you. If I treated you like a roommate or indulged in revenge sex, it would be considered punishment. My leaving you to do whatever you want is not a form of punishment, it's a gift. You wanted to have sex with others. You have been free to do so. It's been 1 year. Cannot we start over? What has been done is permanent, and I cannot undo it. But we can start over, and you can tell how honest I am. You are not dating anyone, and neither am I. We must both be looking forward to getting together again, or we'd have moved on. Rachel, I've moved on. Just because I don't want to start dating again doesn't mean I'm still interested in you. Don't say that, Grant. Please reconsider. Rachel, we discussed this before. I love you, and I confess it. But I can't get the mental image of you having sex with Ethan. I know I didn't see anything happen, but I have a vivid imagination. Every time I see you, even today, I think about what happened that day and what might have happened before that. After that day, I remembered how you stopped kissing me when you returned home from work. I questioned my belief that it was due of the smoking, and began to wonder whether it was because you gave him a BJ after work. The showers at work may have been used to wash away the sex, rather than for exercise, she yelled. As I have stated, nothing else occurred that day. I'm not trying to make light of anything, nor am I making excuses. I am only telling you how I felt and reacted. I experienced a moment of vulnerability. I became engrossed in the conversation and couldn't bear the curiosity any longer. I should not have acted on it, but I did. I am not the saint you believe I am. Yes, I'm no longer your virgin bride. Some guys, including yourself, regard me now as damaged goods, a moment of weakness. You're not alone, you know. So what? I don't care about other men or their cheating wives. I'm not talking about the other guys. What do you mean? I do not comprehend. You were with Amanda for more than 2 years. You don't suppose I hadn't thought about her? And as I mentioned, 2 years together is a long period with a lot of sex. You were just 18 when you met. And I am aware of your sex drive. You've had 2 years of sex. Sex every day, every way. Your sister-in-law Maria told me everything about her. She even had the audacity to show me her wedding album so she could point out photographs of Amanda in her bridesmaid dress. Dancing with you, kissing you. She stayed in touch with her for years and frequently brought it up with me. I didn't realize she was being that harsh. Yes, she was. Then she mentioned Becky. Yeah, I know about her as well. You were so upset over Amanda cheating on you and your split that she introduced you to Becky. Becky, her neighbor, has had feelings for you for a long time and jumped at the opportunity to get you. Becky told Nancy all about the sex and how glad she was to finally meet you. I never knew, and now I know what's worse. Wasn't Becky your best friend, Logan's ex-girlfriend? He mourned for her every day, the one who only left Logan because he couldn't accept the reality that she had aborted their child. I am also well aware of this. So you had sex not only with another person, but also with your best friend's girl. You probably damaged their chances of reconciliation. I assumed there was some sort of bro code. So don't get all arrogant about picturing me with someone else. You are being hypocritical. That happened before we met, but the situation remains the same. I'm not talking about violating marriage vows. I'm simply bringing up the fact that I was able to deal with your having sex with others and moving on, rather than allowing my imagination to run wild and ruin any chance of us getting together and having a meaningful relationship. Others do this all the time. First and foremost, it is not the same. If you'd had a lover before we married, I would never have brought it up and suffered with the consequences. I never broke a vow I made when I married you. You did, and I am not ready to take that chance with you anymore. How about the trust and respect factor? How do I get over the idea that you had planned that date for a while? You seduced that guy for quite some time. You lied to me about meeting with him. And you lied to me about why it happened. So, why on God's green earth should I believe you now? Just because you claim you're repentant, and even if you're telling the truth, it could have been a single incident or day, but not just once. You can't expect a younger, fit guy like Ethan to be content with a one-time quickie. You were gone for the majority of the day. So much more happened than just once. But that's in the past. The damage is done. Oh my God. Here we are fighting. This was the last thing I wanted to do today. We don't have to be finished. Isn't there anything I can do, Grant? Please. No, not now. As I mentioned a year ago, perhaps we could date and see what happens. But I am not ready. Just as I have no desire to date other ladies, I have no desire to date you. You're one of many divorced women out there, but I'll tell you that you're by far the most attractive and you have a lot to give. Once you announce that you are available, there will be a slew of available guys vying for your attention. Simply be honest with them. Use the no surprise rule. Whatever you hope to learn about their background, you intend to tell them. Nobody expects to discover a virgin your age, but not all men want to commit to a long-term relationship with a prior cheater. Many would. Don't get me wrong, but some people, including myself, would disagree. I don't like where this is heading. You're effectively pushing me to date other people, but if you can't handle what I did with one guy, how can I expect you to ever accept me back if there are more? Is this what you want? Instead of giving a definitive no, you want me to make a move and offer you a better route out? You tell the kids you wanted to give me a chance, but then tell them I ruined it by dating. No, that is not what I'm saying. I am not planning anything. I'm just being honest and admitting that I don't want to date anyone, and this includes you. I've changed. I'm a colder person. I enjoy being alone. I intend to remain alone. I have no wicked plans against you. Would you date me if you planned another date in the future? I do not know. I never considered it. Even if it's 2 or 3 years later and I've already dated and been intimate with someone else, would you ask me out? I stopped, causing her shoulders to droop. As I previously stated, I had never considered it, and I am unlikely to do so now. She lighted a cigarette, exhaled toward the ceiling, uncrossed her knees, and leaned forward for effect, peering into my eyes. You paused before responding. Why did you need to think? Why not give a quick, straightforward answer? To be honest, I wanted to make sure I heard the question correctly before responding. Was there anything I didn't hear or understand? I asked you if it was 2 or 3 years later and I had dated and been intimate with someone else. Would you like to ask me out on a date? How was that not clear? Was the pause caused by my statement, I will be intimate with others now that it could be a fresh start? Will you not accept me despite my past? I wanted to make it obvious that you asked me out on a date. You are sleeping with other men. Has nothing to do with this. It's simply that I can't bring myself to ever trust you again. More men, fewer men. It doesn't matter. You've already brought one man into our marriage. How can I know if you went out with me in the evening and then returned home and called another man to sleep with? So, my answer is no. So, we are back at square one. Her eyes began to well up, and she stood and gazed out into the horizon at nothing in particular. Grant, thank you for coming today and for being honest. I had thought that things would go in a different route. I suppose, as they say, it is what it is. I really fouled up, and what was broken cannot be mended. I truly hoped you'd see. I am willing to start afresh, and I was hoping you would be as well. But you're correct. It wouldn't work since I want more from our connection. I believe I already have you as a friend, but if you are unwilling to provide more, being so close together would be punishment. And honestly, I believe I have already punished myself sufficiently. I do not need any more pain in my life. Why don't we skip supper and simply say goodbye? With that, Grant and Rachel hugged, and Grant went alone to his car, gazing back and waving to a sobbing Rachel before driving back to New Hampshire. Rachel remained there for a few minutes, wiping away her tears, unsure what to do and wondering how things could have become so bad so soon. Rachel and Grant never had that date. Rachel did have the occasional date, but nothing ever came of it. She and Alex did reunite, and both children pay frequent visits. The past is seldom mentioned. They all agreed to only discuss the present or future. Grant got what he desired while being a loner. He fished and kayaked alone, runs alone. He never told his children or anyone else that he was sorry. He did not attempt to reconcile. As he explained to Linda, he does not live. He exists. When the pain is so intense, all that remains is to simply exist. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.